Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation.
Hi, everybody. It's Tuesday, June 2, 2020. I didn't sleep very well last night, so I apologize. I'm not 100%. But hello. It is time for Office Hours Ask Me Anything, where I'm here to be helpful to you. I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. And of course, you can ask questions from the anonymous link, and that will come into my email. You can also ask questions in our YouTube and LinkedIn chat rooms. I've got those open. And also a reminder to everybody, won't you please subscribe on YouTube? LinkedIn wasn't sending out notifications before. I hope everybody knows that there's a stream right now. YouTube is much more reliable, and I find the stream is better quality and less lag. So it's a little bit more of a conversation. So I hope you'll subscribe and ring the bell over there. And thank you. So I'm sorry, I'm also struggling with spring allergies. So I've got a couple of questions. I've got a question that was already sent in ahead of time because this link is good all week long, 24/7. And if I don't get to your question or you send it during the week, I just answer it in the next office hours, which is every Tuesday, now at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. Adjust for your time zone. So I want to start with a question that I got, and then I want to talk a little bit about the definition of empathy because that kind of came up this week around LinkedIn, and it's certainly tied to some other things going on in the world. So, anonymous person asks, how do you build good relationships with product managers? As a designer and researcher, I don't feel empowered to make UX decisions. Our product management team is definitely larger than our UX team. Thank you, anonymous person, for your question. Let's talk about some possible answers to that. First of all, for a much longer answer to some of that, I would suggest taking a look at our podcast. So you can go to the Delta CX YouTube channel, go to the live stream podcasts playlist, or search and look for our podcast episode 24 on product managers and relationships with them. So that would be one thing that I recommend. That was a good one. Another thing that I want to talk about with respect to that question is if you feel like you don't have a good relationship with product managers, that might be something that you have to bring your manager in on. Sometimes I find it's not something that we can fix. It really takes our manager, a UX or CX manager, and a product manager, whatever, if you can make sense of that, to kind of get together and figure out what are the roles, what are the responsibilities, what are the boundaries, what is each person doing, who makes decisions where. Now, of course, you can also check my podcast from last night, which was episode, I think, 45. It was on collaboration versus design by committee versus democratization. And that might be relevant for you as well, and maybe to show your manager. Because there I talked about how so often everybody wants to do UX tasks and everybody at our company wants to have a say in UX decisions, sometimes overruling us. But we really need our management and leadership to fight for UX to have power over its own domain. Nobody makes product decisions other than product. Engineers do not invite marketing to make decisions in engineering. There's so much here that's going wrong, and somehow it's always happening at our doorstep in CX and UX. So I don't have one magic wand that I can wave and say, aha, if you do this, you will have a better relationship with product managers. It's really more about how to make product managers and what we can do to make sure product managers understand UX, understand what you do, and understand that you should be able to make decisions in your domain. Sure, we can collaborate with other teams, but that doesn't mean we give them decision-making power over our domain. So again, it may not be something that you yourself can fix. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. You'll need to work with your manager on that. If your manager is the product manager's manager, that's sometimes a little bit difficult because they sometimes favor their peeps over you. And in some cases, this is just a job you can't stay at. Let's face it, we can't fix everything. Sometimes we have to move on. But I would want to make sure that you're talking to your manager. If you really think this could be an HR issue and you want to document it, like if you, especially if you're worried they're going to create some paper trail on you and make it seem like you're incompetent and you're not getting things done or you're not capable of making a decision, then maybe you want to go to HR and say, "Hey, look, I'm a specialist and expert in this area, and they're not letting me do my work. They're not letting me make decisions in my own domain. This is not collaboration. This is just being stepped on and overruled, and we need to improve this. I can't be completely powerless and voiceless in this job." So that would be my answer to that. I apologize. I'm going to sneeze. Ah. Sorry, spring allergies. I just cannot shake them. What about you guys? Let's see. Nothing in the chat room yet, but I am watching it in case you guys have any questions. This, of course, is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and these are always archived. So if you didn't join us live, just check it out later on YouTube. We've got a playlist called Office Hours, and you can just find them all in date order. So you can catch up on any ones that you've missed. It looks like we've got a few people watching in LinkedIn. Hello on LinkedIn. Sorry again about the spring allergies, and we've got some people on YouTube. So hello, everybody. Now, Scott R says the never-ending spring allergies. Scott, I don't get it. And you're in Chicago. How are your allergies? Now I want to talk a little bit about the definition of empathy. Now, we've covered this before. It's in my book. It was in a previous podcast with Dr. Seth Finkel, psychologist, who has joined us a number of times on this podcast with his expertise in psychology. So let me tell you where this started. Last week, a generally well-respected and well-liked UX author posted to LinkedIn a short blurb, and I'm going to read it to you, but I'm not going to say who it is because I'm not looking to embarrass them, but we do need to set the record straight for what they said. So here's what this person wrote, and this person was female, so I'm going to use female pronouns. So she said, "Empathy is really misunderstood. Many people think it is an emotion, or it is feeling someone else's emotion. Feeling someone else's emotion is actually called emotional contagion. Empathy is about understanding someone else's world." Now, this sounded completely wrong to me based on the book I wrote and the interviews I've done with Dr. Seth Finkel, psychologist. So I wrote to him, I screenshot it, and I sent it to him, and I said, "Is this woman right or wrong? And what is emotional contagion? Is feeling someone else's feelings an emotional contagion?" Here's what he wrote back. "Hi, Debbie. I've attached the definitions from the American Psychological Association's Dictionary for Empathy and Emotional Contagion. I agree with that person's definition to some extent, but not with her exclusion." So first, let me read you the American Psychological Association's dictionary definitions of empathy and of emotional contagion. Empathy. Understanding a person from his or her frame or of reference rather than one's own view, or vicariously experiencing that person's feelings, perceptions, and thoughts. Empathy does not, of itself, entail motivation to be of assistance, although it may turn into sympathy or personal distress, which may result in action. In psychotherapy, therapist empathy for the client can be a path to comprehension of the client's cognitions, affects, motivations, or behaviors. See also perspective taking. So, again, based on the American Psychological Association, it sounds like an accepted definition of empathy is both understanding someone's frame of reference to take their perspective or vicariously feeling someone else's feelings, which the woman who posted said it was not. So I don't agree with her there. This is an accepted definition. Now, she said that was actually emotional contagion. So let me read you the dictionary, the American Psychological Association dictionary definition of emotional contagion. Emotional contagion. The rapid spread of an emotion from one or a few individuals to others. For example, fear of catching a disease can spread rapidly through a community. Well, that's a bit timely right now. So that's emotional contagion is the spread of a feeling through multiple individuals or a community. So it sounds like the person who posted's definition of emotional contagion is not in line with the American Psychological Association, and I would think we would probably want to stick with their recognized definitions. Now, Dr. Seth Finkel said more than that. He said, as you and I have discussed, empathy is a pretty broad and amorphous concept, and it can be interpreted in several different ways. At least from a cognitive viewpoint, yes, it's about perspective taking. I would say that understanding someone else's world is in that ballpark. Understanding people is a related but somewhat different concept to my thinking, but understanding their world, or at least their perception of their world, sounds a lot like perspective to me. So Seth is generally agreeing with what that person said, but here's where he disagrees. Seth wrote, however, I take issue with her implication that feeling someone else's emotion is not a part of empathy, and I absolutely disagree with her definition of emotional contagion. Emotional contagion, as the infection-related terminology implies, generally carries a negative connotation. Social psychologists invariably use the term to describe mob mentality, the rapid spread of fear through groups or similar phenomena. It can be used, I suppose, to describe the transmission of emotion from one person to another, but again, it would imply an emotional infection of a sort generally not viewed as useful or productive, but rather kind of a tainting of a second party with emotional discomfort. In this regard, one might use the concept to describe therapist burnout. So think about psychologists who might burn out from being therapists. Seth says, for example, if a therapist is highly empathic, he wrote, highly empathic. If a therapist is highly empathic and is unable to process the emotions that they're inundated with on a daily basis, we might think of that as emotional contagion of a sort. But simply feeling someone else's emotion, I'd put that more broadly in the category of empathy for sure. And I think I'm not atypical among social scientists in that regard. As the APA, American Psychological Association, as their definition includes vicariously experiencing a person's feelings, perceptions, and thoughts as a component of empathy, I think we're on solid ground here. So I wanted to just mention that because, again, we're all bickering so much about what is empathy, what isn't empathy, who has it, who doesn't have it. Remember, this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Queue up those questions, send them with the anonymous link, or put them in the chat. I don't have anything else to answer after I talk about this. Um, we're not helping each other by feeding each other incorrect definitions of empathy. A month or so ago, I saw someone post on LinkedIn that empathy is thinking about customers. That doesn't fit the American Psychological Association's definition. And we in UX and CX are heavily thinking about things related to psychology and cognitive psychology. So I would definitely want to go by some of those definitions. So when I hear empathy is thinking about users, I had empathy because I drew wireframes and I was thinking about users. I would say that's not empathy, especially if you didn't have any research and you were just guessing about users. That's not empathy to guess about people. That would be pity, sympathy, guessing. Bull. I mean, it's not empathy. So please remember the definition of empathy. There are two accepted definitions. There is emotional empathy, which is vicariously feeling someone else's feelings because you are so tuned into them, which of course is fairly rare and sounds a little weird to people, but definitely exists. And then there is cognitive empathy, which is the slightly more intellectual side of things, where you're able to remove your biases and you're able to see someone's world through their eyes, walk in their shoes, as they say, and see their perspective and their world based on how they see it, not colored by your beliefs, your preferences, your ideas, your guesses. Those are the two accepted definitions of empathy, as far as I can tell. This is what the American Psychological Association says, and emotional contagion is something else. So, when in doubt, ask a psychologist. I think that's the best thing for us to do in the CX and UX industry, rather than make up our own definitions of these things or adjust them for our own reasons. I would rather go with accepted definitions of things and not overinterpret them and not stretch them to mean something else. So, empathy is what it is, and emotional contagion is something else. Thank you. I think we got through that. So, as always, this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and I see something coming in from good friend Bill D. Bill says, I wanted to get your take on this. How do I get the product managers to write stories for the UX department? Most of the tickets written are technology focused for the developers. We wait for tickets from the PMs to work on. I've written my own tickets of items that I'd like to see changed and feed those to the PMs. So this sounds like kind of where I started today's broadcast, saying it's really important, especially in the CX, UX, and product manager relationship, to really determine, either at a company strategy level or maybe a project level, though really it would be better if they were consistent and they were all the same. What is everybody's roles? What is everybody's boundaries? Who is writing the user stories? Is it product? Is it UX? Is it a product UX collaboration? Are we going to have a meeting and write them together? Or is that lean waste we could cut? We have to figure out whose job this is, and we don't want to pass the buck because someone has to write these stories. They're important for product, they're important for CX and UX, they're important for developers, and they're going to be important for QA to test against when we can attach acceptance criteria to them. So, if PMs are not writing stories and they're just writing technology-focused things for developers, you can certainly step in and do it. If you feel like this is something you can't wrangle, as always, I suggest bringing in a manager. Hopefully you have a UX manager and you don't answer to some other weird arm of the organization like marketing or engineering. I would probably bring in a UX manager or somebody more strategic and say, we need to set up a consistent strategic standard for what is the BA doing, what is the product manager doing, and what does the UX person do on each of our projects. And outline everything. Outline everything. You know, UX does this, but they don't do this. UX does this, they refuse to do this, and nobody should do it. Product is going to do this. Product's going to make the roadmap, but product should collaborate with UX in case UX has some suggestions on some prioritization based on research and data we have. So I think that it's really important. It says in my book that we need to do this more with business analysts because sometimes they are just driving all over us. They want to interview customers. They want to write requirements that basically design the software, and then they just expect us to draw wireframes of their requirements. So my book specifically says do this more with business analysts. And what happened was somebody said to me, hey, your book didn't go as deep with what to do with product managers. And I was like, oh crap. Yeah, I guess eventually I had to stop writing a 384 page book. And yeah, there's going to be things I missed. So I made it into a podcast. It's episode 24. I brought in 2 product managers. One I've previously worked for and one I had not. And they talk a little bit about what some of those relationships could be like. Bill, I know that's not the most concrete answer, but it just seems to me like something that really requires not a Band-Aid this time on it where you write some stories and we put on the Band-Aid. I think we really need to get more strategic with this and bring in some management, or whether you need to bring in program and portfolio if you're doing the agile thing, and say, look, at at all of these levels, we need to define roles. I thought that was supposed to be part of Agile in some cases, but it's not always being done. So, Bill, always good to see you. Hope you're having a good day and working hard. I know you are. And let me know if you guys have any other questions. It is office hours. Ask me anything. I am badly struggling with spring allergies today, but believe me, in the scheme of what's going on in the world, I'm embarrassed just to tell you that. So, believe me, I'm not going to complain. I'm just going to sound weird and sneeze a lot and keep blowing my nose and do impolite things like spraying my throat in the middle of a live stream. Bill, any follow-up thoughts or questions on that? And of course, Bill, I always recommend subscribing on YouTube just because it's a little bit more of a synchronous conversation there. YouTube's usually delayed about 20 seconds. I find LinkedIn can be delayed 2 minutes or more. So sometimes I'm talking back to you and you don't know it for 2 or 3 minutes. And man, that's long in internet time. It's like dog years. So let me also shift to a view that I love to give you guys, which is of the chat. So if anything else is asked or commented, you'll see it along with me. This is live. I've learned this is something that you guys can't see. So I tried to look up, someone said, hey, I want to see that. And I want to see what the YouTube people are saying. I looked it up and I found that LinkedIn is a bit of a walled garden right now. And the system I'm using can pull in LinkedIn comments, but can't push anything out to LinkedIn people. So right now it's a little bit weird. So for now, there you go, until something better happens in the LinkedIn world. Hello, this is Office Hours. Ask Me Anything. Hope everybody's doing as okay can be. People are asking people to not be silent about what's going on right now. I posted an article on Medium today. If you want to find it, you can, of course, go through the Delta CX Medium publication or through me on Medium, or just Google Medium. And the name of the article was Help Them Hit Rock Bottom. And it is not behind Medium's paywall. And you can see some of my thoughts on what I personally believe are some of the things we can try to do that are kind of like I can't solve racism and other things. I wish I could, but these are some pre-steps that I think we can do where we might eventually see more dominoes fall. But it's going to take a lot of action to change what for some people is their core. And that's really too bad. It's definitely too bad when racism is your core. But we've met those people. Bill says, sound like I have to elevate to the director of product to get her team on board. The PMs have not really worked with the UX team. Yeah, Bill, absolutely. I mean, we just have to decide. What is everybody's roles and responsibilities? Where are the boundaries? Because everybody thinks that all of our jobs overlap in some way. Product managers sometimes think they should sketch wireframes, and business analysts sometimes think they should write enough in the requirements that developers can just go and build it, which of course undoes what we're trying to do. So it's really important for that higher level strategic role, whether you're in that strategic role or someone above you is in the strategic role, to start defining the roles and responsibilities and the boundaries so that we can all be on the same page about who is doing what and who has final say in what domain. Ultimately, I would love to collaborate with product on their product roadmap. I might have some ideas on prioritizing things that are different than what the product manager was thinking, and maybe I convince them and maybe I don't, and they have final say because product is their domain. But UX is supposed to be our domain, and so often somebody else makes a decision in the UX domain because they don't respect us. So I think we need more strategy level stuff at the department level, at the company level, not just the project, to make sure that everybody's on the same page about who's doing what. Now, please excuse me. Totally impolite. So sorry. Scott, how's your allergies? You didn't tell me. Oh, my throat is burning, people. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. That was ridiculous. Oh my God. I just keep spraying propolis at it. Ah. Okay, we've got a new question in LinkedIn, and someone who's new to me. Hello. I might say your name incorrectly, and I apologize, but you appear to be Chaitanya. Hello, Chaitanya. And Chaitanya's question, as you can see it on the screen now, is, hi, can you please suggest where do I start if I'm new to UX? Great question. I think the best answer to that is to go into the Delta CX YouTube channel, into my live podcasts playlist, and you will find a podcast from a week or two ago called So You Want to Get Into UX, something like that. Let me see exactly what it was called. It was called So You Want to Work in UX, and it's episode 37. Let me get you a link right now, Chaitanya, and paste that into the LinkedIn room and paste. And I'll also paste it over on the YouTube side. Okay, there we go. That's episode 37 called So You Want to Get Into UX. And I talk about generally getting into UX and some of the good, bad, and the ugly of working in UX. And then I give my suggestions of education. Hello, Dr. Sebastian. Good to see you. The short version is there's lots of ways to learn UX and there's lots of good content out there, but ultimately there's only so far any of it is going to go if you don't have a mentor or a coach. Because ultimately, I was saying to someone today that trying to learn UX is like trying to read a book about playing tennis. Eventually you're going to want to go out on the court and hit some tennis balls. Well, you would want a professional coach to be there to make sure you are understanding tennis techniques and doing them well. So you can read and watch and take courses, and some of these are great and some of them stink. But until you try real or fake sample projects and you have a mentor or a coach, you really don't know if you got the material. You really don't know if you're applying the material correctly and doing good work. So that's really at the core of my suggestions there. So good luck. Sebastian, how are you? Do you have spring allergies? I am suffering here. Ugh. Bill, you, spring allergies? Yes, over in California? I don't know. You and Sebastian in California. Maybe it's light this year. Well, Bill's all right. I'm sorry, Scott's all right. So I guess I'll have to fly to Chicago, next year when it's safe. Hello, this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and we're about halfway through. I normally stay up to an hour to make sure I've answered everybody's questions. You can also send questions anonymously to this link on the screen now, which is deltacx.link, which is my URL shortener, /AMA for Ask Me Anything. And it will be totally anonymous. So you can complain about your job, you can say whatever you want. I will read it out loud, but I won't know who you are. Chaitanya says, thank you. I say, you're welcome. Bill says, my eyes are watering. Oh, I wish. My eyes feel like sandpaper. Sebastian says, I'm lucky. I don't recall having any allergies in my life. Oh, Sebastian, I want to be you. Yikes. Very, very lucky there. Whew. Okay. Hey, it's June, everybody. Is time flying or is it just me? So let's see, what else is going on in the UX world this week? Sorry, I didn't sleep well last night because of allergies. What else is going on in the UX world? I'm trying not to talk about the world in general. It's depressing, and it must be changed and fixed a zillion different ways. And I can't fix it. I can only talk about it. But what else is happening in UX? I don't know. Well, while I wait for you guys to ask some questions, especially since I know LinkedIn is a good 2-3 minutes behind me, I'll take a moment and tell you guys about some of the live streams that are coming up. Please join us tomorrow, albeit at a later time than usual, 9 p.m. Italy time, so we can meet Tato Ansuto, who's going to talk about learning design and instructional design. People think they're cousins of UX. Are they? I don't know. We'll find out. Next week, a little bit of a change of schedule because I'm speaking at 3 events next week. Yow. Monday will be office hours. Tuesday, I'll be speaking at UX Crunch at Home about how terrible design thinking is. I forgot what the name of my talk is. Is it in the calendar? Let's see. I named it something silly, like design thinking has jumped the shark. I'll be pooping on design thinking with some other people who will be presenting. I know one other person is for it, but I don't know what the third person's stance is, so we will find out. All stances welcome, though, I'm usually pretty convincing. So Tuesday I'll be there. Please Google that and join it. It is not a free event, but the money doesn't go to me, so please support UX Crunch. Wednesday, if you are somehow registered for the conference called Agile and DevOps West, I'll be presenting there. I do not think that's an inexpensive thing like UX Crunch, so you're probably not registering for that. And bookmark, placehold, calendarize on Friday the 12th. I'm doing the UXPA webinar, and it is Stop Evangelizing UX and What to Do Instead, and I'll be taking questions. So, please check that out. And that's what's coming up in my world anytime soon. Welcome to Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Do you have any questions? Neha is here. Hello, Neha. Hi, Debbie. Good to see you again. In UX project, after Journey Map, I was asked to prepare user flow, but I got stuck after some time. Can you please tell me the best way to prepare a user flow? Sure. The best way to prepare user flow is after you've done your UX research, you've hopefully done some sort of task analysis, which is what are our customers or users trying to do, and kind of where is that falling apart for them now, or maybe it doesn't exist. So what's a task that people are trying to accomplish? They're trying to search for something. They're trying to buy something. They're trying to research. They're trying to compare prices. They're trying to subscribe. They're trying to unsubscribe. So everybody has a task. Everybody has come to your site or app or system to do something. So that would be the way that you would then create the user flow is not by the way that the system is now, because either the system isn't doing this now or it's not doing it well enough. So a customer journey map often represents what the customer's doing now and where they're running into problems and what they think and feel as they go. So that's usually representative of what they do now. A customer journey map is usually not a dream of the future when everything gets better. But the user flow is your flow chart. So you're using a flow chart style. You're not sketching screens. You're using a flow chart style to show the steps of the customer's process in the system that you have decided is better than either what's there now or the new steps that you're creating. Now that means I can't just say, and here's how you do it, because it's going to be different for every project. It's going to be different for every user flow. But it relies on you having correctly identified and understood what the customer is trying to do. If you understand what the customer is trying to do, you are more likely to create a user flow that takes their tasks or jobs to be done into consideration and creates something that is efficient and short and easy to figure out and easy to use, that efficiently gets them through the task they're trying to accomplish. So again, a user flow is a flow chart. It's not really a map. It's not really a hierarchy. It's not really a sketch. It's typically a flow chart, and very often it shows multiple paths. So it might show, okay, a user who's logged in does this. A user who's not logged in might have this little extra bump to log in or create an account. A user who is already a customer might see something different. They take this other path. So it's a flow chart representing the one or more paths that our customers might take. where they might run into branches of that path where this could happen or that could happen, and where they might hit an end or an error. Sorry. Bill says, pro tip, brush up on UML diagramming language. Neha says, should it also include the user dropout point? I would say that in a user flow, we would expect a user to complete a task. If a user ends up in real life dropping out at a certain point, that's up to the user. We might not be able to stop that. So, for example, if a checkout flow is a few steps, put stuff in your cart, give them your billing address, give them your shipping address, give them your credit card, pay for it. So let's say we've got a few steps. Now, to me, the user endpoint is the checkout is completed. The checkout's completed, they paid for it, we sent them a confirmation, they made an order. If the user drops out somewhere earlier, I can't control that. So I wouldn't mark it on a flow chart because a user can drop out anywhere. They could drop out on the first screen, second screen, third screen, fourth screen, hit their back button. So we can't really guess in a user flow where people may or may not drop out. The user flow is your map for, remember, it informs your interaction design. So user flows are part of information architecture and they inform your interaction design, which means once you know the user flow, you can then wireframe or prototype based on, aha, step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 3 is this. Okay, now I know what I'm making with my wireframes or my prototypes because I know the path that someone might be taking. I know where the path branches or has other options. Now I can create these things. Bill also suggests lucid charts. I use Axure. I just use Axure for everything. They do flow charting. And Sebastian, I saw Chaitanya and Sebastian, I know you wrote stuff. I just want to make sure we get Neha's question addressed. Neha, how's that? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? I know it may or may not match what you're learning in your boot camp right now, but hopefully this is helpful. Yes? No? Let's see. We've got a couple of comments coming in. I'll hit refresh in case I'm missing them. So while we wait for Neha to let us know how we're doing there, Bill says, love user flows. It also helps uncover user states you didn't think about. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about when I say, imagine that not everybody takes that same path, that there are places where the path diverges, where this could happen or this could happen. Maybe there's an error or a problem, or maybe it's a different type of customer. So we have to be thinking about all those possible outcomes. Bill says, see, I don't know if he didn't finish his sentence or if he's trying to speak Italian to me. Thank you, Bill. So moving back up, Chaitanya says, what's new is happening in UX? I think the Tesla launch of its spaceship, the screens have been replaced with buttons. What? No, the spaceship has screens. It didn't have too many buttons. It had screens. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Sebastian says, while I wait for Neha to follow up, Sebastian says, these 3 images have been all over the place with the headline, this is UX. Okay, Sebastian's talking about the SpaceX meme that's going around, which is like, oh, the 1960s Apollo missions and the 1980s or whatever spacecraft, I don't even remember, and ooh, today with Tesla screens. That's what he's talking about. And he says, Sebastian says, I don't know. I don't have enough data to say if yes or no it's been following that path because UX has been taken into account. But I want to say that as we get into a more virtual world, it's very important to understand the importance of tangibility, especially in the design of life-critical systems. Would a screen be better than a knob? Maybe. Maybe not. I brought up a similar point around LinkedIn. My concern, my thought was just because something's a screen doesn't make it great UX, doesn't make it easy to use. And what if that screen goes bad? Does that mean these people all of a sudden have no access to those controls? What's plan B? And then I also think about the USS John McCain, which was a ship that was in an unfortunate accident because something in the UX and UI was confusing to the crew, and they ended up crashing the ship. They blamed it on people on the ship being fatigued, but let's face it. What military unit is not fatigued, some or all of the time? You have to design for people who are fatigued and maybe thinking a little more slowly, a little more naturally confused from fatigue. So you have to design for that. Neha says, thank you so much. Great. I hope that helped. And give it a try and come back and ask more questions. Hopefully, we're adding some stuff that your boot camp is leaving out. Chaitanya says, "Oh, sorry, I meant the buttons have been replaced by screens." Yeah, that's what we were just saying for the SpaceX thing. Um, yeah, and I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of the screens in the Tesla because I think that's distracted driving. But of course, I don't. The spaceship is not distracted driving since a lot of those things are automated and controlled by the crew on the ground. Sorry, I've got this very dry throat that just gives out on me. I look like I've been eating curry. I've not been eating curry. I'm going to eat it tomorrow. Because I cooked it. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know anything about Tesla's or SpaceX's process for designing their screens, testing their screens, trying to determine if this is distracted driving, trying to determine if it's what's the word I'm looking for? Too much cognitive load for the astronauts, especially astronauts that could be fatigued or dizzy from any spinning or G-forces. I just don't know. I want to raise the concerns, but I don't want to judge or come to any conclusions because I don't know. This is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. We technically have 20 more minutes if people have questions or just things they want to talk about, like SpaceX. SpaceX. What else is going on, people, that we can talk about that won't make us cry? Silence. Worst thing for a live stream. Everyone just hung up. Hi, won't you please subscribe to my YouTube channel? It's free. And it's so much faster than on LinkedIn. And sometimes LinkedIn doesn't even tell you I'm live. Oh, it's so frustrating. But when I complained to LinkedIn, they were like, hey, do you want to use it or not? And I was like, all right, Vinny, fine. So I'm using it, but it's a little weird. What else is on your minds, guys? I figured this was going to be a bit of a quiet week. I know people have a lot on their minds. They are rightfully distracted by what's happening in America and around the world. But I didn't want to not show up today because I know sometimes people rely on me for answers and wait all week for me to give them the answers. And I didn't want to not show up, even though I know some people are going dark today and as in not turning on the lights, as in not doing their broadcasts. But I just couldn't think of a reason to, I mean, there are many reasons, but I couldn't think of a good reason to not help people when I think what we need now is to focus on how can we help more people. And since these broadcasts are about helping people, I don't know, do you guys think I did the wrong thing? Should I have not broadcasted today because some people are calling for broadcasts to not happen today? I just couldn't imagine not helping you guys and gals and other. Help. So this is office hours. Ask me anything. I'm pretty exhausted. I hope you guys are doing okay. I hope whatever cities and places you're in that you are safe. Um, and I don't know. This is all just so. I mean, it's forcing conversations we need to have, but we need more than conversations. I don't know. Anybody here know how to fix racism? Anyone? Because I wish we did. Could we just put that on a Tesla screen? End racism, press button. I wish there were a way to create empathy in people. I mean, talk about empathy. If you read my Medium article, you'll see that I don't split people into political groups. I don't split them into other types of groups. Uh, I, I, to me, there are low empathy people and there are medium to high empathy people. And the low empathy people tend to be racists and maybe homophobes and maybe ageist and maybe ableist and discriminatory and yucky. Yeah, I mean, it's important to talk about racism, but there's all kinds of issues. And I was reminded of that by a YouTuber that I dig a lot. If you guys aren't following Headbanger's Kitchen, you need to. He is great. He's a heavy metal musician who does keto cooking recipes, and he's totally lovable. And he wrote today that, and he's Indian in India, and he was writing today like, okay, I'm against racism, but I'm also against all the things that happen in India. Like, let's not just say this is just America. Bill says, take color out of the conversation. Well, yes and no. I mean, we've got to keep skin color and ethnicities in the conversation. We can't act like it's not a factor or it's not going on. But there's certainly a lot of other abuses and discriminations happening as well. Chaitanya says, do you want to talk about the Airbnb layoff and how people are dealing with it? I could, but I don't know anything about it. I don't know anybody who is laid off from Airbnb, and I don't know how anybody's dealing with it. I think in general, people are dealing with layoffs with huge sadness and regret, and lots of fear about finding new jobs. Was anybody here laid off and want to talk about it and how you dealt with it or are dealing with it? Dr. Sebastian says, what have you been up to in terms of industry related projects lately? What's your field of preference when it comes to UX research like healthcare, retail, etc.? Ooh, a question about me and my work. Thank you. This is unfortunately not the best time to field that question because I've had a lot of projects put on hold because of the coronavirus. So I started out the year with a wonderful rainbow of possible projects for my Delta CX agency. And just as people were about to sign contracts, everybody went kapoof. And they panicked and they didn't want to sign the contracts. And I've heard back from those people since, and they say, we're still thinking about this project, not sure when we'll be ready. So, I am not working on a lot right now because most of my projects got put on hold. That does mean I am available for work. I do a lot of freelancing and contracting, so I actually am available as long as you allow someone working remotely because I'm not getting on a plane, probably not this year. But certainly doing work remotely. What's your field of preference when it comes to UX research? So I tend to get the projects I tend to get tend to be e-commerce, SaaS, a little bit of healthcare, and sometimes banking or finance. Now, that doesn't mean that that's all I can do. I would say that's just where my agency tends to get projects. And obviously, those are very broad. I mean, SaaS could be a zillion things. Last year, we worked on a SaaS system for dog hotels. So SaaS can be anything. And banking and finance, I've done a bunch of times. So I don't have a preference. I mean, my preference is always any project that appreciates what I and my team can bring to it and wants to step back and let us do our best work. And of course, collaborate. But I mean, like, I love when people just go, we need you guys, or we need Debbie. You're the expert. Here's some time, here's some money. Make the magic. Um, so I don't have a preference on industry. I tend to stay away from um, politics. I sometimes stay away from energy if I don't feel like it's a renewable energy. But in general, I've done lots of different projects in lots of different areas in all of my years, but I would say many of them. I started in e-commerce in 1997, so I have extensive e-commerce experience in designing and customizing it. And what else? Um, yeah. So I would have to say I'm not as busy as I had hoped I would be right now, but who saw coronavirus coming? So mostly I've been doing a lot of speaking, a lot of my speaking stuff. Usually I'm touring the world speaking, but some of it changed to online. Like next week I have 3 speaking events. So and that reminds me to follow up with another one that wrote to me last week. Follow up speaking. Uh, so I wish I were doing more. If you have something for me, let me know. But that's what I'm normally doing. And as much as possible, I like to do that full arc of user-centered design or human-centered design, research, competitive analysis. I'm not the best content strategist, though I do a lot of writing, as you guys know. But sometimes that's best left to someone else. Information architecture, love that stuff. Love the research. I love making personas. I love making personas from hours and hours of research, and I feel like it's something I'm really strong at, and I've got a lot of great stories of when that's gone well for me. I think I'm accidentally talking about myself too much. I'm sorry. Dr. Sebastian asked, ask me something else, guys, and I'll stop talking about myself. But yeah, I am not up to as much as I'd hoped, so I'm doing a lot of writing for some new talks I've been giving. And I also entered into some new conferences this year. I did a keynote at a marketing conference, so I had to write all new stuff. I did a talk at an HR conference, so I had to write all new stuff. I'm doing a talk tomorrow night on done versus perfect, so I had to write some new stuff. I'm doing a talk next week with Tech Circus on why design thinking is terrible. I already had a lot of stuff, but I found there were some new things I wanted to say. So I would say right now I'm doing a lot of writing and learning. I've decided to get a green belt certification in Lean Six Sigma just to learn some of their approaches to things and how those could be better brought into our organizations. Lean Six Sigma seems to suffer from a little bit of analysis paralysis and a little bit of too many matrices and too many abbreviations for things. But I like some of what's at the core of it, and I think it should be talked about more. So Sebastian says, are you able to share what your persona structure looks like when you create one? And what's your top 3 advice for creating a good competitive analysis? Bill says, design thinking, boo. Yeah, let me open up some of my personas and share them. I've just opened up the wrong window. Give me a second. I pressed the wrong button. How am I even awake, people? Press this button. And let's see. Let's pull up some old personas. I always love this set. Let's do this set. Okay. This is an oldie. I think these are from 2015 or so, but I would say my format is still pretty close. I was the director of UX at an agency at the time, and so you'll see an agency logo on there. That is not my logo, but I'm not going to take off somebody else's logo because that's where I did the work. Let me just share this in my world here. Let's see. And slide me down. All right, here we are. So, I would say the difference between some of my more recent personas and this is I would definitely want to include a little bit more of a task analysis. I was trying to think about people's tasks back then, but I didn't really include it in the personas. And now I would definitely include more of a task analysis in it. You know, I've got motivations, I've got needs and frustrations, and I've got their story, but I don't really say like, she needs to accomplish this. I think I didn't say it as clearly as I would now, but in general, this is the format that I use. I've got a stock photo, which they didn't buy, so this one still says iStock. Um, I've got a quote from them, which is either it's usually an aggregate quote of different things I heard. So it's not like I heard one person say this. Usually I've heard like a few people say things like this, and I create an aggregated quote. This was for a credit counseling service, and so all of the personas had to do with 4 of them had to do with people wanting credit counseling services. One was the credit union, who hopes that this counseling service will help their credit union customers get back on track. And the 6th one was a donor, because the credit counseling service was a nonprofit and they wanted, and they donate money for good and bad reasons, and what they would need as obviously not an end user of the service, but as someone who might come to the website and partner with the company. So the website had to address attracting potential donors. I just realized I don't have my questions up. Um, uh, Shashikant says, can you talk about why design thinking doesn't work? Yes, but later in the month. I'm redoing my slides on that, and then I promise there will be a podcast just on that, so please stay tuned. I'm reworking my slides now, and but in general, design thinking doesn't work because it's either one of two things. It's either human-centered design, which in which case just call it HCD or UCD. Don't call it design thinking. That makes it sound like it's a child's toy. Or it's the 5 steps that everybody hears about now. Create empathy, understand the problem, ideate, prototype, test. That is extremely watered down. That leads to a lot of poor, surface, shallow work being done. It leads to people who aren't UX people thinking they can do what I do, and that they just have to fill out this framework and they've harnessed my abilities. So Sebastian says, love the structure. Intent would be great to add context. Context, yeah. So the story I love to tell about these personas is I had made these personas with a very strange situation. This was one of those projects, you got them, I got them. They wouldn't let me talk to customers because they felt that because of their privacy and the nature of credit counseling, I couldn't talk to customers. So this was all from talking to execs and stakeholders and customer support reps. So much more kind of secondary research, not secondary research from the perspective of I Googled it, but like secondary people. And I put together things as best as I could, and I created these personas, and especially the first 4, who are the end users of the system. And I picked these photos, and I gave them names. And this was impulsive Irene, who overspends on her credit cards, and now she's in trouble. And this is bright future Ben, who isn't in credit trouble yet, but he never wants to end up in credit trouble. And this, of course, is the senior being targeted by scams. And when I handed these in, the VP that was our stakeholder said, "Oh, you know what? I never showed you this video we made where we interviewed some of our happy customers." And I was like, "Yeah, I wish I could have seen that. Okay, send me that video." And she sends over these videos, and I ended up crying because there was this middle-aged African American woman telling this story. And I was just like, oh man, I really got this. And then there was this young Asian American man going like, I haven't messed up my credit yet, but I don't want to, and I want to work with this company to learn what to do. And I was just like crying, crying, like not only did I get everybody's stories right and aggregate these personas, but I got the pictures looked exactly like these people. And it was just one of those moments where I really felt a lot of pride in my work, because even under a difficult situation where I didn't get to talk to real customers, I was still able to make something that I was very proud of, that I think worked very well. I do have other sets of personas where I spoke to 30 people, and I can show you that as well. But that's a little bit about that. So thanks for asking. And Shashikant says, thank you. I'll look forward to it. Me too. I can't wait to tell you guys the 8 million reasons why design thinking stinks. And top 3 advice for creating a good competitive analysis. Number 1 would be, remember that competitors are probably also getting it wrong. So don't feel like you have to glorify them or find good things or make it seem like they're getting it right. I think one of the biggest problems with competitive analysis is people act like, oh, this guy must be doing it right, or they're the industry leader, they must be getting it right. We should really just kind of copy them. So I would say the number 1 problem with competitive analysis is thinking that that the competitors you're looking at are getting something or everything right, and sometimes they're getting nothing right. They're frantically working behind the scenes to redesign things and experiment. You don't know. So number 1, we can't assume that anything you're looking at, your own website, somebody else's system, got anything or everything right. Sometimes I see people go, oh yeah, look at what Home Depot did here. They really got it right. And then we look 3 months later and it's gone because it was an experiment that failed. So that would be 1. Competitive analysis, I would also say, look at as many dimensions as you can. Don't just look at the heuristics because we think in some of those terms. Look at accessibility. Look at how some of the copy is written. I've done some great work with companies where I either was auditing their own site or assessing a competitor, and I found some really funky things happening with copy, whether it was words on buttons or some other stuff. So pay attention to copy and brand voice. Accessibility for sure. I also pay attention to information architecture. If I think their menus are disorganized, overwhelming, inconsistent, I'll point that out. And then I guess number 3 would be, use my model, the 4 horsemen of bad UX, registered trademark R in a circle. It's my registered trademark. And the 4 horsemen of bad UX are frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction. And did anyone send a question? No. Okay. So I didn't miss that. And look for those things. Ooh, I think someone would be confused by this because it was different over here. Hey, I think they would be frustrated that you keep popping up these pop-ups, which now Google will penalize you for in SEO. Hey, this is distracting. Hey, this is disappointing. So look for the 4 horsemen of bad UX. It's a great model and it works in layman's terms. Everybody understands frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction, even if they don't understand the heuristics. So I always make sure that in my competitive analyses, I write in layman's terms. I don't try to write them academically. I don't try to write them higher than you. I want to make sure the person reading it gets it. And sometimes I'll write a little bit casually and conversationally so that people feel more on the same level, unless I'm dealing with a fancy schmancy company who tends to like things written in a higher tone of voice. So play to your customers, play to your audience. Okay, with that, I'm running a little bit late on the hour, but this has been Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Please remember I do this every Tuesday at about 6:30 p.m. Italy time. Please adjust it for your time zone. And please catch us tomorrow a little bit later, 9 p.m. Italy time, noon in California, where we'll be meeting Tatuan Suto and talking about what is learning design and what is instructional design. And what do they do? How is it different than what we do? And how can we partner with them? So thanks again to the people joining in. You make office hours into something. Without you, I'm sitting here looking at myself and going, got a little spot over here. What's that? So thanks for you guys and gals for showing up and asking questions and having comments. And it's your show ultimately. So see everybody soon. Be well, stay safe, do everything you can to be safe from everything right now, and keep speaking up, keep acting out, and keep donating, and we'll eventually create change. Thanks, everybody, and see you soon.
Thanks for watching. Delta CX is available for consulting and projects related to CX and UX strategy, leadership, training, problem finding, problem solving, and innovation. Learn more at deltacx.com.